Creatives, community, kind folks out there. A minute later too, but it's all right. Welcome. I am DBJ, your host of RPG with DBJ, and this week we are going to, just because of a very special occasion in the geekosphere. Game of Thrones is coming to an end. It will begin in April 14th, I believe. Begin airing here in the States, and everyone's going to be excited. So I figured, well, why don't we just pick a character each day of this week and find out what we can steal? What can we deep dive into, decipher, dissect, disseminate to others in the RPG community? And why are these characters excellent? Or why are they boring? And then what can we learn from that and insert into our RPG games at the table? So I thought I would start with Tywin Lannister. For those who are unfamiliar, or maybe you just like living under rocks, Tywin Lannister is, of course, he was killed in the show. Most characters end up being killed anyway, but is played by Charles Dance and is an excellent character, part of the House Lannister. And I am one who has not read the books, although I am quite familiar with a lot of the background history of this character. So I thought, let's dissect this character. Let's figure out what it is about this actor, this character, whether it's the written word, the cinematography, anything that has to do with this character. And what is it that we can pull from their behavior, to their words, to their body language, to their purpose in the story, or their house and their background, or their future desires? What can we pull into our RPG games? Good morning, Record. Well, thank you for telling me good morning. I'm pretty sure it's not morning where you're at. That being said, Tywin Lannister is the somewhat tyrannical ruler of the patriarch, if you will, of the House Lannister. And in the television show, of course, we know that there are many other Lannisters. But one of the things that really hallmarks himself and his house is that there's a saying for his house where we pay our debts. And I love the saying of that house and the saying of the other houses, because it can be construed and misconstrued into so many different things that it's both a promise and an oath and a threat all at the same time. Yeah, Rickard says it's 11 a.m. That's definitely classifies as morning. Hell, I go so far as to call 1 p.m. the end of the morning. Hey, so will I. Yeah, I do these live streams, but yeah, I'm not usually awake till the afternoon anyway. Rickard says, I think I got the AM PM right. Oh yeah, you sure did. You sure did. So Tywin rules with an iron fist, and he is known to be an individual that repays a debt. And that repayment of debt, of course, for someone who is a farmer or a craftsperson, is like, oh wow, if I make armor, or I sell wheat, or I have an exceptionally robust growth of pigs this year, this gentleman's going to pay me back for pay me what I'm worth. Great. For someone who does them wrong, in the back of their mind, they're like, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, man, this guy's going to pay me back if I don't take them out, if I intend on backstabbing them or killing them. Man, it's crazy. Zephyron says, DBJ, I hope you appreciate what I do for you. Waking up at 5 a.m. Oh my gosh, dang vacation. Love your stuff, man. Yeah, you're just kidding. Love your stuff. I thank you so much. And hey, maybe I'm the excuse to get that morning started, get that cup of coffee. Maybe you're feeling a little impacted from too much iron in your diet, and listening to me kind of like smooths out the bowels. Maybe that's or maybe you couldn't sleep last night, and I put you to bed with my dulcet tones. Anyway, So Tywin Lannister is an excellent example of a very intimidating. Dead Man Storyteller says could be worse. You could be in Hawaii. Oh hell yeah. Um oh wow. Yeah, I can't remember her name. Her last name is Rand. She used to join in from Hawaii, and it was like midnight or something like that. It was crazy early. Maybe 1 a.m. or something. It's crazy. Zevron says, I definitely could sleep last night. It was staying asleep was the issue. Yeah. Yeah, sorry guys. This is my morning coffee, and you guys are just punished by it. So Tywin to me is an excellent example of an NPC and this individual who is extremely intimidating, a huge threat to everyone around them, yet represents someone that is needed in the community. This person, he's demonstrated his viability as a Hand of the King when he was Hand of the King in his past, and has existed for a long time because he knows exactly how to push and pull, how to prod, and how to forgive. And I say that with air quotes, forgive what his enemies have done to him, to really put himself in place as a kingmaker as opposed to the king. Rickard says, to be honest, Tywin feels like the type of person who's been right way too much, and so they expect everyone to just follow suit. They know best after all. You can't really argue with that, right? I mean, from his point of view and from his successes in his life, he is right. You know, here's a person who privately you can say to yourself, I don't like that guy. But publicly, you'd have to acknowledge that his actions have led to the growth and prosperity of King's Landing. And so you could have this quite devious and somewhat brutal and emotionless and tyrannical person whose actions in your world have always led to better and better things. So I think people tend to forgive the evil if it outweighs the good in terms of their own life. And I don't mean doing good acts. I'm saying like they get more money in their pocket. They feel safer. The enemies they perceive to be far more dangerous are kept at bay. And he seems to be someone who is I don't want to say reasonable. He seems to be someone who's always in control of himself and others, so he doesn't come across as a madman, despite the fact that despite the brutal things that he causes in his wake. So everyone says time zones plus your schedule, it's cool. Had to put up with screwy time zones when my girlfriend went to California when visiting her family. Yeah. None of us like daylight saving time. And daylight saving needs to have an S on the end of it. Anyway, Zevran continues to say, Tywin is what happens when you don't tell someone no, and it just becomes the norm that this person is the wise man. I completely agree with you. And he's manipulated that, right? He's the person that's like, don't worry about it, I'll handle it. And slowly and surely, he's a charismatic because he very easily erodes away your moral standards, your code of honor, to the point where he becomes a fixture in the society. He's almost like a utility service, right? He's like electricity, water, food, and Tywin, right? Without him, things just fall apart. How do people get fed? How is money being spent? How is the world being, how's the countryside being defended? And those kind of things. And even with his tyrannical hand, there's a comfort in it. It's almost like the comfort the people in the Empire feel when the Empire takes control, right? It's the devil you know rather than the devil you don't. And he is never one to lose his control. And I'm going to bring up some of his body language and his mannerisms that make a really great NPC. Pretty soon, Rickard says, I think that leads to a personality that they believe so hard that they are always right, thus in control, and he can afford to be intimidating because they will thank him in the end. And when you're the outsider and everyone else feels that way, it kind of works, right? It's wrong, but it works because the more, how can I say this? The more the public tells him he's right, and the more he acts in a way that confirms that, it's you're the outsider looking around like, guys, you're trying to raise your hand like, guys, I don't think this is, why are we listening to him? And then everyone else, not him, but everyone else that's under Tywin's control turns around, looks at you and goes, what's your problem? What are you trying to buck the system? Like, this is the way things should be, and it does create a cult of personality. But if you realize Tywin was never the king, right? This is a gentleman who is brilliant enough to know that he doesn't need to be the king as long as he's pulling the strings of the king. So while there are other kings he served and other machinations going on around him, he's always been very deliberate and in his actions, thinking very far in advance, understanding that he doesn't need to crush all of his enemies. He just needs to have the knowledge that he can crush his enemies when he wants to, or has allies on his side that can crush his enemies, and letting his enemies know, I have these allies, say one word and it's going to happen, right? So Zevron says, it's fitting that a lion in his house is, it's fitting that it's a lion in his house, a symbol. Creatures typically associated with honor and nobility, but when hunting, bite and clip at knees and throats, doing what is needed. Yeah, I like that analogy too. I really do, because we consider the image of the lion as being like this honorable, honor and having honor and nobility, because that's how we perceive it. But the lion itself is like, I want to do what it takes. I will rip the throat out of the antelope in a minute to feed my family. And the population, if you think about it, the population are those huge herds of antelope, right? It's like, oh, he looks so noble. Whoa, wait a minute, he's got his eyes on me. Rickard says, now that I think about it, he's like House without anyone to be a moral compass. Oh, how House, the Doctor House. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. He's completely convinced of his own importance, and that makes him dangerous, because here's a guy who's got, like, Dungeons Dragons terms, what's he got, a charisma of like at least 16 to 18, maybe a 20, plus a ton of other, you might even lower his charisma maybe to like a 16 or 17, and probably got pluses and persuasion, intimidation, or whatever have you. Hell yes. He +5, +6. I mean, this guy, he knows what he has to do to achieve what he wants with his words, with his body language, how he tends to lower his voice when he gets more threatening, and he makes you wait for his responses. And those little things, when he walks up on you and stands above you, like he did with Joffrey, his little psychotic, boy king, when he speaks to his small council. Oh man, what is my face? When he speaks with his small council about important matters, when people come to him and he knows they want something from him, if you notice, he always dominates the time it takes in those conversations, and he dominates the sound it takes, whether he's silent, whether he lowers his voice so you almost have to lean in to hear what he has to say. And he very rarely speaks with question marks at the end of his sentences. He doesn't say, listen, can you? He tells you, you are, including to his own family. So I like his speech mannerisms as an intimidating figure, because from the outside, it seems like he's just having a conversation, but within, he's definitely laying down the threats in front of you, like a red carpet, and wants you to walk down that path. Everyone says, and the head of the pride eats their fill after the others in the family did the work for him. Okay. I can see that about the lion analogy. Rickard says, I guess that means he's a bit of a Moriarty, and all in all, ponders that. Yeah, I would relate him to a Moriarty. He always has plans within plans. He is very well versed in the reactions people have to the things he does, for good or bad. So he knows when he pushes people or lets people get away with something, or knows that when he says something, they will react to him in a certain manner, and he expects those reactions. Sometimes too much, but yes, he expects those reactions. So everyone says he trains his children in politics, in swordsmanship. He wants his progeny to be perfect in the game, ready to discuss negotiations, prepare in assassinations, or fight a war at a moment's notice, whether they like it or not, right? And remember, perception breeds reality, right? So the people around him know that he bred his children to be the pinnacle in all of those arts, like you said, assassination and negotiations and swordsmanship and politics. So despite the fact because we know his limitation, right? His limitation is he really can't see the things in front of his face, or he refuses to see things in front of his face because he's so used to shaping reality to meet his own expectations. So we know his family is a broken thing that does not correspond to what he imagines his own family to be. But to the outside world, they're dangerous people. They are individuals that speak something and it comes true. And that can be quite dangerous for, if you want to include someone like him, an NPC who speaks their words, and the population, when he says jump, the people literally say how high, and they clamor over each other to be the one to jump the highest, if you understand what I'm saying, understand the analogy or what have you. Yep. Rickard says, responding to Zev, says that that brings up an interesting angle. If he thinks himself like someone who is always right, why wouldn't he expect his progeny to be perfect? Exactly. And when they are not perfect, if you want to take down this NPC, maybe his progeny are the people you go after, because he refuses to see the cracks in the reflection of his own perfection. Rickard goes on to say, which in the end means no one actually likes him because his standards become astronomical. I would agree with you, and I think he doesn't care that people like him or don't like him. If you understand his background, his dad was a pushover, kind of a punk. His dad was someone that people laughed at and took advantage of, and therefore took advantage of his house. And so Tyrion didn't have very much respect for his father, and so went the complete opposite and learned everything he needed by doing the opposite of whatever his father was. So in his own way, he's the hero of his own story as well. Zevron says, a lyric I remember from a fan-made a Game of Thrones song goes, no cheekbones chiseled on a feline face, no skill or savvy with a sword, one in wily ways, and sly is this littlest lord. We can save the last part for a Tyrion episode, of course. But I think Tywin also represents a person who you don't need your big bad to do the typical twirling of the mustache and I'm the big evil, I'm the person that's in control, right? Here's a person who has demonstrated their importance. And so while the players might find them quite arrogant, maybe just sprinkling little hints here and there, it's like, well, he's arrogant, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's evil until they spend some time in and around this individual. And then they go, yeah, he needs to be put down. And knowing that this person has so many allies because everyone else is afraid of what happens when when the void leaves, or when this person leaves and there's a power struggle over the void when they are gone, could be an issue. And I don't mean Tyrion could necessarily needs to be a dragon or a lich or something like that, although you could do that. You could understand that the population, let's say, is controlled by a lich, and the player characters come in and they're like, oh, it's a big bad undead, we need to kill him. And everyone else is going like, wait, please don't do that. We're being fed, we're protected from the greater evil on our borders. He's, done public works. Sure, he breaks a few eggs to make an omelet, but we love omelets, and please don't do that. And so that could be, depending on the type of players you have, that could be the issue, where these are individuals that are like, well, rather the evil we know than the evil we don't. And sure, the player characters may not think too hard about that, but what a great way if they put down this Tyrion styled NPC, they create their own problems thereafter, right? Hey, we did a 3-game arc and we killed the Lich. Hey, I'm done. And then all of a sudden war breaks out and chaos reigns and the dragons invade and the undead armies come in, and then the goblinoid hordes start to, rampage, and the players are like, we're going to have to find another king. Rickard says, I do, however, wonder if he can truly understand that his own children don't like him, or if he is frustrated with their inability to understand his plans. I think a little bit of both. And I think part of it, though, is he is such a practiced individual that in our own world, we have human beings that we convince ourselves of things so much that we no longer see reality. So I think there's a little bit of that too. I think there's a little bit of the psychoses. I believe he knows that Tyrion is an expert and he doesn't want to see it. He knows that his daughter and son are sleeping with each other and have spawned children of their own. He knows that. I think he knows it. And I think he's practiced his personality and honed it to such a sharp edge that it only reflects himself in the blade, and he doesn't have room for his own children's desires. So, yeah. Zevron says, maybe your Tywin character is the court wizard or vizier advisor. He has provided info to the players or trained some in spells. He genuinely seems to hold them in high regard. So when he plans to usurp the throne, he offers a reward to the party to execute the king, maybe still offering them jobs after as trusted individuals. I love that because, like you said, here's this court wizard or vizier or advisor, this individual who's very knowledgeable. And like Tywin, he's not adverse to helping people out, right? Because he knows that he's always setting in his claws for the bigger picture, right? Training the other players in spells, or giving them advice, or handing them, special arcane items of power after they complete a mission, or giving them information about an assassination plot against a rival in the courts or something, lends himself to being someone who, sure, is he a little emotionless? Sure. Is he a little unfeeling and demanding? Yes, but he's a great ally. So once the player characters achieve a certain level of power, in his own mind, he's thinking, okay, I'm also training someone to take them out as well. And a few PCs in his own mind, he could underestimate the PCs as well, right? When they're third level, he's thinking, they're no big deal. When they leave and come back, he may underestimate the fact that they're now 12th level, 18th level, and looking at them as, imagining them as their third level personages when they've left after he gave them instructions. So when he orders them to kill the king and they do it, or even if they refuse to do it, he still's probably thinking, I've still got something on them. And how cool would it be for him to snap his fingers and the very magic items or arcane spells or whatever have you that he's given the player characters just don't work against himself? That, I mean, he would definitely have something like that. You know, the magic sword that the paladin's carrying is also also acts as his scrying device, so he knows what they're talking about when they camp out, or the special orb that is hung from a tree that protects the party with an alarm spell is also his scrying device that he watches. Harry Shore said, thank you for the super chat, man. I appreciate that. Harry Shore says, winter is coming. Hell yeah. Oh, I can't wait, man. I cannot wait for the end of the show. I'm just a fan of not just the stories told, but the acting and how it is told. And come on, despite the fact, how many of us kind of appreciated him getting his ass killed on the toilet? You know, how many times did what was it? Not the mountain. Wow. How many times did Sandor Clegane say, you know, when a person dies, they just shit themselves? I mean, yeah. Zevron continues to say he waits for info on the king. On the king, he waits for info when the king comes out, or probably when the king comes out. Maybe on their last job, they go through a burned down town, learning the king purged a nearby area to gain a sacred elven artifact to gain power over the city. So, okay, so you're saying like when the king comes out, it's like it could either be true that the king has you know, burned out an area and stolen an elven artifact, or it could be a ruse. It could be a lie. Or this Tyrion character pushed the king to perform this act only to set him up to become an enemy of the people, and then the people rebel, i.e. the player characters rebel against this tyrannical king, but really the Tywin Lannister type character, the advisor sitting in the background going, yeah, I pushed him to perform this act. Dog is the mountain's brother. Yeah. Rickard Johansson says, I just realized that I don't know his motivations. I mean, he wants his house in power and in higher regard, but as you said, as a kingmaker, not a king, but what is his end game for the kingdom? You know, I once said that Tyrion, I think it was like Absolute Tabletop Facebook group or something, but I said Tyrion is a perfect one-note character. I mean, the Hound, Dead Man says he's known as the Hound. Yes. Sorry, Harry, but yeah, Dead Man is right. He is the Hound. It's the Hound, and his brother is the Mountain. We'll talk about him as well. But you are correct that Tywin never quite tells anyone what his plans are. Now, mind you, his plans could be quite simple. His plans could be the continued existence of his house and his power for its own sake, right? It could be, I want to have all the puppet strings and that's it. But does he really have plans for the kingdom? It's hard to say. But the way the Tyrion, darn it, the Tywin Lannister character is portrayed, despite being a one-note character, he comes across as someone who has so many layers that is very difficult to decipher what those layers are. So I absolutely agree with you that we really never know or even see a different side of him. Like, we never get to see the softer side. For example, when we find out that he's, you know, sleeping with and I can't remember her name, but the young woman, in the Game of Thrones, they always call them whores. I hate that word. But when he's sleeping with this prostitute, you're almost scratching your head like, really? Like, I can't even imagine him summoning up the desire for him to even engage in something like that. So yeah. Zevron says, you know, quote, should we trust a Lord that doesn't even protect his people? We need leadership that serves the people. I have served him and will continue to serve if you'll help me. Right. I could imagine him. He would absolutely say something like that, where he's constantly in a state of pushing other people against each other while he sits in the back. It's the idea of a pit full of rabid dogs. You feed one so that the others feel the jealousy, so they don't band together to come after you. Rickard says, I mean, if you want to pull all the puppet strings, what do you want to pull the puppet to do? We never quite know that. And I feel like, I think we can learn to use this in our RPGs by laying the groundwork for this individual who's constantly pulling the puppet strings and not needing to answer that question right away. Right. I think where it comes with Tywin and us as creators, it's okay to leave things unsaid. So you could have this kingmaker, this person in the background who seems put together and is always working on these greater plans, but maybe those greater plans never come to fruition. And when the players finally ask you, like, man, I remember playing in that game and this guy, he was great and he was very charismatic, but what did he want to do? And you could just shrug your shoulders like, I really hadn't decided yet. He's planning on something and he's playing a long game, but I never made that decision. And as a creator, you could make that decision based on your players, right? So maybe a player has a warlock patient to a fiend or is a tiefling, and maybe this kingmaker is waiting for the right time to beseech this person's relative or their demonic patron and beseech them for power. It could be a paladin whose loyal order has sent them on a mission, and maybe this kingmaker is trying to get this paladin's order on his side. So you don't necessarily need to answer that. I think it's a good idea to leave space open, because kind of like how Tywin's family has broken apart, what a great way for you, and when I say you, I mean me, and when I say me, I mean us, to insert a player character and go, hey, could this character be my dad or like my granddad or something? And you go, yeah, your bardic character, that makes perfect sense, man. How did you learn to be so charismatic? Well, you followed this person. You followed the teachings of your dad, and you and your dad, that's your Achilles heel. Whenever he starts talking, you just become like a sad face. And okay, I'll do what you tell me, Dad. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? What a great flaw to have to earn that inspiration in your 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, to be the super charismatic bardic character, except against this person because he's your father. Rickard says, agreed, but I do think it's needed for you as a DM to know if you're going to make it a central figure. I'm going to agree to disagree with you. So I do agree if you're going to make them a central figure. I'm going to disagree if you plan on keeping this person not central, but as an aside, as a motivating factor. So Tywin, to me, is a kind of a MacGuffin, in the sense that here's an individual who's constantly pushing other factions to react to what he is doing. And that's a great way to remove that analysis paralysis your players might have. So, for example, the player characters could come into town and they have analysis paralysis. They don't know, what should we do? Where should we go? I don't know. Maybe we should stick around. Maybe we should. And a great excuse is, okay, well, Tywin has told the king to make this decree to do this one thing. And all of a sudden, magic is illegal. And you're just like, what? Magic's illegal? We just got here. What do you mean? Oh, man. Okay, that means we're going to have to hide. And that'd be, you could say he's sending out hunter-killer troops to go after anyone who dares to wear the symbol of the god of, I don't know, god of the sun. And the cleric is going, well, I'm not taking my holy symbol off. He's not going to make me do that. And the other player characters are like, dude, please wear a cloak. Don't show anybody, and don't talk to anyone, because you always end your sentences with, and praise the god of the sun, right? So I think he can both operate as a central figure and as a side character who just happens to be extremely influential. So while I do agree with you, if you're going to push him in the forefront, yeah, you kind of need to know what he wants. But I think if you're going to hold him off on the side, I think he's a great character to have in your back pocket as a motivator. Zevron says, in a Ravnica setting, Tywin would make a fantastic oligarch. It would be interesting to see his end goal is to become so powerful in his family to join the Osbadat Ghost Council to rule even in death. Ooh, what a great that's a great motivator. Here we go. This is an excellent book, guys. This excellent book. If you want to understand like the social interactions and you want to get steal some great ideas, one of the better WotC books, in my opinion. Sorry, but that's just my thing. Yeah, oh man, the Osbadat Ghost Council. I love that idea of these people ruling even in death. Rickard says, I mean, with someone as pragmatic as Tywin seems to be, it would only make sense to know the basics of the end game, as he wouldn't act against it. And we never find out in the show. I don't know about the books. I don't believe in the show we quite understand what his motivations are. But I can see if when you're role playing an NPC, it's good to understand what they want. For example, a simple shopkeeper wants to make money. A simple farmer just wants to be safe. So when you role play an NPC, it's always good to have in the back of your mind what they ultimately want, as opposed to expecting what the players are going to do or say. So if you know this Tywin character wants, his goal is to become an immortal, or his goal is to uncover an ancient artifact only he knows that exists in the Outer Lands, or wants to place a king in power only he has the ear of, or all of the above. Once you know that, when he starts conversing with the PCs or sending messages to them, or using, sending ravens to converse with them, sending these messages, wording the messages in such a way that pushes people ever closer to his goal is a good thing. Severin says, as an Orzhov, I can see him being an influential character. I could imagine him playing more than one faction in Ravnica. He could have his sights set on dominating two or more factions. I mean, is it something that's attainable? Maybe not, but that doesn't mean someone can't be arrogant enough to think that they could obtain the power of more than one faction in Ravnica. So yeah, Zevron says a quote from House Orzhov that I think is quite fitting. It says, quote, "You may not be able to pay, but you can still kneel." Yeah, you may not be able to pay, but you can still kneel. Why is my mouth not working? Anyway, yes, I love that saying, because, hey, you may not have the cash, but you can serve me in one way or another. And as a matter of fact, in the Orzhov, if you can't pay and you die, you can still serve them as an undead figure. So Tywin perfectly fits into that. This undead individual, you could reframe this individual as a vampire or a lich or a ghost or just someone immortal who's obtained or is striving to remain immortal, as maybe they are a mortal character using potions and alchemical substances and is trying to distill immortality from Elvin's blood and finding an artifact that will extend his life and looking to figure out how to become vampiric without having the bloodlust and such. Maybe he's quite pragmatic in that sense and is like, I'm gonna make myself immortal, but I'm gonna do it under my own terms. As everyone says, I will show Ravnica whenever I get the chance. Yeah, sorry for butchering that quote too. Rickard said, that said, you might want to get the king to forbid the sun god religion only to build up resentment for the king, with the end goal to set up the sun god religion as the main religion. I love that. Hey, guys, copy and paste that, man. I love what Rickard says about, says that, because this is a person who understands the ramifications of what he says. So yeah, this Tywin character goes in and says, "Hey, listen," to the king, whispers in the king's ear, and the king's like, "I'd make a decree to destroy the sun god and all of the temples. The sun god must be excised from here." And of course, this Tywin character makes up some kind of lie or sets in motion some kind of upheaval, maybe sneaks some of the money from the king's coffers into the worshippers of the sun god's coffers and blames it on a thief and whatnot. But whatever the case may be, the king has his soldiers, or even the drums up resentment by the people to burn out the sun god out of this town. And here comes the PC. Religion comes in town. The people start to resent the king. And then here's this Tywin character sitting in the background, just smiling. You could also, here's a little bit of a cheat, right? You create this Tywin-like character who's always manipulating things in the background. You play a couple of games, you end that session. You play a couple more games, 3-5 games, you end that one. And then slowly and surely, the players on their own start to think, I wonder if someone's behind all of these separate little machinations. And then you could retcon all of the problems and blame it on this one Tywin character. So what I'm saying is, you may not have thought about these things happening, but you could absolutely go, yeah, I didn't think about it, but yeah, sure, he's a Rakshasa in disguise and caused all of these things, these upheavals in all distant lands. Yeah, you're right. You know, as you start scribbling down notes like, "Ooh, that's a really great idea. I didn't think about that." So what Rickard is talking about, where he says, you know, this individual really should have a purpose. My point was, if you leave him blank a little bit, the players may come up with a reason for why he's doing something. So you might want to you might want to write your purpose down and maybe use a delete button, or like use a little whiteout and write that in. You'll if you understand, you'll get the whiteout reference. Everyone says, "In my house, repay our debts in this life or in the great beyond." That is a great motivator. And I love the way there's a way to reskin Tywin as something fantastical, especially in Dungeons and Dragons, right? There's magic everywhere. There's magic and psionics and otherworldly creatures and all these kind of things. So reskinning him as someone like that, whether they are an immortal or they are they are made up of a number of different things. You could just reskin this person as a Naga, or you can make them human, but just go, I'm going to give them a stat block of a Naga or a pit fiend or an ogre magi or Oni or a sphinx or whatever the case may be. You could just reskin the stats and just say, oh, this Tywin character, here are the stats. I'm going to write this down and just make them that individual, and therefore and save yourself the trouble of trying to figure out an in-game reason for why he exists. Zevron says maybe the players can be given spells or ritual components or potential magic items, and Tywin calls upon these favors, either in a straight up monetary exchange or in a series of favors. We mentioned that before, right? Yeah, that you know, he gifts them these things or calls upon them for their special skills, and like you said, whether he just pays them or it's repaid by favors. And so, absolutely, positively, he doesn't need to be the main focus of your game. So, for example, he can always sit back in the shadows while there are other machinations going on. And he could just be that one person that, oh, he's the quest giver again, and steps out of the shadows, helps the players, steps back in the shadow. And again, they go and defeat a dragon. They come back to town. He steps out of the shadow, puts them on another quest. They go and destroy the giants. They come back into town. He comes back in. And after 4 or 5 times, they're like, I really don't like his personality, but I mean, he's reliable and he seems to always be on our side. I don't have a problem with him. And every time they come back into town, maybe things keep getting worse and worse, or his enemies keep speaking ill of him, and the players are like, why do you keep talking about him? He's not a bad guy to us. And so, yeah, I would definitely use that. Harry Shore says, power behind the throne more desirable than to become a target, which absolutely makes sense for who Tywin is, right? Like I said, he's like a utility. He's like gas, electric, water, food, and Tywin. No one wants him. Everyone accepts him in his position of power because he supplies life and comfort and reasonable reliability. He is a stone in the middle of a raging river, and people tend to hold tight to things when others are in control. Rickard says, not knowing the end game, and when it's time for the reveal, you have to try and puzzle together all the plots to see what fits. Yeah, I'm not saying the end all idea. I'm saying it's an idea you can use, especially if your own players piece this puzzle together and you're just like, I wasn't planning on one person being in charge of all of that stuff, but hell, I've got this Tywin-like character, so sure, he's in charge of it all, right? I mean, listen. Part of being a game master is putting on your game face, and part of being a player is not destroying the immersive game face your game master puts on. So go ahead and put out those little feelers and see if he chomps on it. If your game master chomps on it and you're the player, whatever, go with it, right? It's us getting together, collaborative, making our own little mental movie, and we only get one chance at it, right? We don't get a rewrite, so go for it. If there's 4 people at your table, those 4 people are probably far more creative together collectively than you are by yourself. So yeah, use the fuel. Zevron says, I may be getting a little strange with this, but hear me out. Maybe he can be a warlock patron for a player. He raises a normal person as a warlock to serve as his agent to help his rule. When the players ask what he is, he responds, I am this city. I am its people. I am power. You'd best remember that and learn to listen and follow, for what was once given can be turned against you. I absolutely love that idea. Guys, here again, once again, cut and paste, people. Cut and paste. A warlock patron. Why does a warlock patron need to be Cthulhu or a fiend or the Raven Queen? Why can't it be someone who outwardly looks like a regular person? And sure, he could be like using Ravnica, right? He could be an immortal or a ghost or something like that. Harry Sure, Chrissy ran. Yeah, Christy ran. Oh, Hawaii. Asked for your Discord address. It's in the Discord address is located below the video. So, and just join on in. But I absolutely love that idea. Like, why does a warlock patron need to be so dramatically special snowflaked? Maybe that's not the right way to say that. The warlock patron doesn't need to be flaming with with strange scaly skin. Why can't a warlock patron just be a wizard, a powerful wizard without stats, right? Here's a person who has, in their own mind, has achieved ultimate power, and they are far more willing to grant it to you for a price. And of course, whenever they ask you to do something, it always starts out minor. Always starts out very minor, but little by little, this character who has this warlock patron of this Tywin character more and more starts being asked to do things. And when they want to rebel against their patron, the patron just like, I can take it away from you. Raise a hand to me and see what happens. I would love that. I would. And how do you role play that out, right? I would love the challenge of role playing that out. Like, do you instantly cancel out that character's power? Is there a way around keeping their power, but no longer being a patron to this no longer being in liege to this patron, this Tywin-like character, this person who controls a city. Normally we think of warlock patrons as being otherworldly, but this person could just be sitting up in a castle, like sitting next to the king. I love that. I absolutely love it. I think this is a cut and paste idea of for real. Rickard says, I mean, you can have Feylord as a patron, right? Yeah. Well, first of all, you can have anything as a patron. You're not beholden to what's written in a book. You can, as long as you reskin something, you can reskin that as anything. Remember, warlock patrons don't necessarily need to be evil either. Warlock patrons could be quite like Tywin, being pragmatic. He doesn't necessarily need to be twirling his mustache and rubbing his hands like, I want ultimate power and kill everyone. He could just be so pragmatic. Remember, Tywin doesn't really waste energy, so he's not one to go out of his way. Well, I'm not saying that he's not cruel. He doesn't go out of his way to over-explain his brutality. Right? He's more or less a person who speaks things and would rather destroy one life to get 10,000 lives in order, to under his thumb. So yeah. Deadman says there are celestial patrons. Of course. There's no need to pick one patron. Yes, Fate and Feylords do fit into that. And all you need to do is just reskin who they are, what they are about, reskin some of their powers instead of burning hands, replace it with a similarly leveled power like acid, some kind of acid spray or ray of cold or something. Just reskin things. I don't think there's a problem with making up your own warlock patron, even if that warlock patron happens to be a single individual in your world named Tywin Lannister. Why not? And who's to say he doesn't have a dozen, 100, 1,000 individuals under his control who could act as enemies to the PC that gets out of line, right? Rickard says, I also need to stop using I mean. Hell, I need to stop using the word right or gonzo or So I'm with you. I'm with you, man. and I absolutely get what you mean. Zevra, and I'm just joking with you, dude, because I feel you. I have the same verbal intonations as well, whether speaking or writing. Zevron says, your warlock mark, your symbol of serving, can be a lion burnt to your back or a literal magical contract in service as a sword. Both. I would go with both. And I would even make it so that your character, it has the character who is in service to this Tywin-like character has ultimate power except against this one person. I would just be, you can blast and burn and cajole and destroy all these other enemies, but against him and his kind, nothing. That would be sweet. Sorry about the sneeze. Sorry. Damn. Rickard says manifestation of the city. If you want to go for non-human, yes. I'm a self-appointed third pillarist. I think if he's a manifestation of a city, the city itself could rebel against the players when they've gotten to a certain high enough level, so that he can control. You could have a problem navigating the streets. The very structure of the city could rebel against them. He could snap his fingers and create structures could collapse on people, or he could create dead ends or pit traps or anything like that. That'd be kind of cool, because it could be done very subtly in the beginning, and then over time you're like, whoa, he really is a manifestation of the city. That is crazy. And he could be a one-off, like he could be a wizard who has become this manifestation of a city. So he's like a character class that doesn't really exist anywhere except as a singular figure. Yeah, I would do that. Dead man says the I means. Yeah. Everyone says, I mean, druids can cast awaken and give a tree or other plants intelligence and allow them speech. Is a wizard giving other magical ability in some form really out of the realm of possibility? I would say no, it's not out of possibility. Why not? Maybe this Tywin character has awakened the city under his control, and this is just it controlling people is just the next step in his control over everything. So yes, I would absolutely see that, where he can gift these other individuals as his own servitors. So yeah. Yeah. Ricker says I will have to start an I-beam tip jar. You guys are silly. All right, so guys, we're coming upon the hour mark, talking about Tywin Lannister, about he's a kingmaker, not a king. A great way. This is a character who's really great to keep behind the scenes, or surround this individual with such importance that it really doesn't make sense to like instantly walk up and put a magic missile in the back of his head. This individual could be a warlock patron, an immortal, someone who has very long-term goals. So I would include this Tywin-like character along with maybe a half dozen other minor characters, not necessarily connected to him, but the hobgoblin chieftain, the dragons in the mountains, add in a bunch of other people that will distract the player characters with more immediate threats, and leave this character in the background who may or may not be cajoling these other evil forces to test them out, or even putting the players against his own enemies. Maybe that he has an enemy of the hobgoblin chieftain and the dragons and the lich and the mind flayers, right? I'm sure Tywin would love to get rid of the mind flayer, the illithid attack that may be brewing on the horizon, and send the player characters after them. And oh, by the way, here's some of my power to get you to defeat them. Players characters go defeat them, get some magic items, they get in some levels. They're like, we're done. Thanks, Tywin. And Tywin's like, sure. Just I've got one more mission for you. Yeah. Rickard says, going with the manifestation idea, a wizard created the embryo and it got out of control. First, it just learned to control the infrastructure, but it wants to control the population as well. He created Skynet? Yeah. Oh, maybe, just maybe, his creation is getting out of control, and he puts on a good face, and he's quote unquote training a new group of heroes to help him take out his own mistake, which could be growing larger and more powerful in the city. Sevron says, how do you like that familiar idea? Why did I miss that? Zevron says maybe his preferred form of contract is Pact of the Chain. The familiars are lions, and each lion is an eye for him outside of the castle. I like that. Can a lion be a familiar? I mean, I would allow it. Or you could, if someone wants to multi-class with like a Beastmaster or something, and they have a lion, because let's say, first of all, I would reskin the lion as anything they can pick, whether it's like a wolf or something, or it's probably not even game breaking to give them a lion, and every lion is like his eyes and ears. Basically, I love that idea. And who's to say there's no limiting who has a lion? So a small farming community may have a lion that lives in and around the people that live there. And Rickard says, I like the idea. It's flavorful and thematic. I would definitely go for it. Imagine a small farming community where a lion and its pride just happens to live in and around the community. Maybe they live maybe a mile or two away, but the lion and the pride sometimes comes into town, and the people just leave out food. Or when the lion comes in, the kids play with the lion, and they're just like they're just the lion keeps away the coyotes or foxes or something that try to eat their food. Little do they know that at a moment's notice, this Tywin character can snap his finger and that lion can rip out the throat of a child of the mayor, right? That would be nasty. Zephyron says, it doesn't say it can't be a lion in the book. Well, and honestly, who cares what's in the book? If you want to let a player have a lion for themselves, whatever. It's not going to break anything. It's not like there's going to be an overload of lions in the world, and at your own table there's no RPG police, right? So yeah, why the hell not? Yeah, Rickard says execute order 66. Everybody says so. That's enough for me. Truth. Yeah, hell yeah. Rickard says could also hand out statue lions to those who aren't valuable enough to get a real lion, but the status spy just the same. Oh, so for example, they come into a desert city, and when they come into the desert city, the castle walls around the desert to keep out the sandstorms are there, and when the players come in, they see two massive lions watching over anyone who enters or exits the city, and from the eyes of that lion, this Tywin character can see everything, anything and everything. And who knows, maybe the lions can come alive and they're golems. Just saying. But even so, even if they're only simply his eyes and ears, what a great excuse to have this character know exactly what the player characters are doing, or at least know enough, especially if people kind of pray before the lion, almost like an icon of sorts to like give them a little bit of strength. When they walk into and out of the town, they rub the lion's mane or they rub the lion's nose to give them like a safe trip kind of thing. Like if you rub the lion's nose, you'll have good luck on your trip. And when you walk by, you say what you want or fear or you wish for or something. And he sees it all and knows it all. Zevron says maybe a ring he gives them can serve as an arcane focus, the ruby of the lion, summoning pack blades or spells from him. Exactly. How funny this is. Imagine this scene, right? The players know they have to defeat this Tywin character. They've gone on 5 different adventures. They've come back and they realize he's the great evil. They walk into his throne room, or maybe they walk into a room behind the throne room. This warlock patron of Pact of the Blade, he goes to summon his blade, and they see a blade disappear off the wall into his hand, and he's like, and of course all the players are like, what? And then all of a sudden the Tywin character snaps his fingers, and the blade of course disappears out of the player character's hand and goes right back up on the wall, and he's like, you won't be needing that anymore. And oh, that lion, come here. And the lion just walks over and sits right next to the Tywin character. That would be sweet. The paladin, let's say, what if all the player characters are somehow related to him? The paladin pulls out his holy sword, fueled with holy energy or something, and the Tywin character just lifts his hand, and the blade just lifts out of the paladin's hand and comes into his hand. He's like, yeah, the god of the sun, yeah, I created that religion. Boom, I'm the head of that religion. There is no god of the sun. It has always ever been me, and it is only me. Ooh, yeah. When you hear him, the ring vibrates or gets hotter. I'm so happy I suggested that. This is badass. Warlock patron Tywin is amazing. I love that because what a great way. First of all, let's think of all the great things of it. You get to role play the character because he's hanging around all the time, right? So you get, and here's a person who you don't have to make an excuse for him to be otherworldly. He's not a fiend. He's not from the 9 hells. He's not he or she is not some kind of jinn or ifrit. He's just a powerful individual who's been gathering his power over the years. And man, I love that idea because he would be underestimated. When the players go out and fight liches and dragons and fiends and demons and hobgoblins and oozes and statues and elementals, and they come back to town to meet this one guy who just walks around with his hands behind his back, who speaks very sternly and seems a little older, but is very wise and kind of expects things to be done the way he wants. But okay. And all of a sudden, you find out that he is more powerful than anything that these players have gotten. Here's another idea. Every time the players defeat a big bad outside of the town, this Tywin-like character gains some of their power. They defeat a dragon, so this Tywin character learns draconic magic. They defeat an ancient Lich, so he learns some ancient power from the Lich. They defeat the Hobgoblin Lord, so he gathers loyal soldiers from the Hobgoblin tribe. Like everything that the players defeated, all of a sudden is like surrounded by this Tywin character picks up the pieces and absorbs it into himself. As everyone says, he's absorbing nearby souls like a Dark Souls character. Yeah. And guess what? The player characters are making it easy for him. That would be sweet. Yeah, I love the idea. So guys, thank you so much, Zev, everybody, Harry for the super chat. Man, dead man, bringing the knowledge. Rickard always coming with the always. It is not agreeing or disagreeing. That's not what we're here for. Fast food. Oh man, fourth meal. Oh, I love it. Sorry, I'm just imagining Tywin sitting in the car in a drive-through and drives away, and he's opening up the bag of fast food, drinking like a milkshake and eating a burger. I mean, of course, the burger is a soul, but you know what I mean. Biting the heads off of his enemies, wiping his chin. Sorry, but guys, thank you so much for bringing the knowledge. Always coming in, drinking dragon blood from a McDonald's cup. Absolutely. Hey, maybe that's his weakness. He's one of those. He's a straw sipper slurper. He's always going. Every time he drinks something, he's always going. And that's why people hate him. It's not because of his magic powers or how much influence he has. It's because he smacks his lips every time he takes a drink of something. Yeah, you got to kill a guy like that. Yeah, a sip smacker. You gotta kill the sip smackers. You're like, hey, I want a diet. Player, get me a refund. I will bring the kingdom down. Oh, how ridiculous. I love it. Thank you very much, guys. Everyone, have a great day. We will continue our deep dive into some of the characters from Game of Thrones, how we can use and abuse and reskin them for our own games in our own RPG table. So thank you very much, guys. Have a great one. Ricker, take care. Always with the great ideas and just giving people some creative fuel for the day. Thank you very much, everyone. I know my ideas are strange. Oh man, I still think that's awesome. Both the fast food and the Tywin as a warlock patron. Why the hell not? That is a great idea, especially when he's the antithesis of all the other warlocks, the other warlock patrons that are like, hey, he's usurping our control. We're the only warlock patrons. He's like, hey, you ain't the only game in town. I love that. And of course, as Rickard says, here's a guy that you might want to know what he's about because you don't want him just to be the big bad. You probably want him to pull the strings in the background. And what does he ultimately want? Immortality and fast food souls. Guys, have a great one. See ya. Yeah, the fiends working together to oppose him. And what a great way to put him on the player's side, right? Yeah, he's stealing their packs. He's stealing a pack of the Raven, a pack of the Fiend, and the pack from Cthulhu, and he's stealing all the other packs from the other warlocks. What a great motivator, right? Hey, he found out they have power. I can have power too. Why not? And as long as those other warlock packs exist, they're a threat to him. So yeah, I love it. Guys, have a great one. I will see thee later. See you tomorrow. Bye. If I don't get out of here, I'll keep on going and going.